See it now.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna call our special meeting to order at 10:11 and open it up for any public comment.
Sure, why not? And I'm apologize for missing the last meeting. Actually went to Fresno and April 10, so I couldn't make it because I was already previously engaged for a trial that I had to go see, which had to do with the elderly man. He was 77 and living outside. So he was facing trial up to a year in jail and a $1,000 fine just for living outside. And they've had over 400 arrests just in Fresno. It's happening all over the state, the nation. Johnson versus Grants Pass is somewhat asking about. I mean, you know, what are people entitled to, I suppose, if they're not paying rent? Because if they're too poor to afford rent, they're going to live outside. And sure, there's a criminal element in there too. But more or less, it's just a lot of innocent people. You know, where are they going to go? He was actually acquitted. The city was pretty sloppy, and they missed their timely deadlines, so it was no longer a speedy trial. But you know, there's still 400 cases. Just failure to appear ends up being a reason to become a criminal and just be taken in, you know, by the police. And invariably, it's people of color that this happens to. And it's by and large that's going to be a large mass of Salinas as well. So I mean, what can you folks do to support people living outside, talking with the city about, you know, like where do they belong? What kind of address can we allow them to have where we can provide services? You look at the CalICH, which is the Interagency Council on Homelessness, the Monterey County Homeless Encampment Response Resolution Policy something, and then the Coalition of Homeless Service Providers has an encampment resolution set. So policy and set, and they're all aligned with the CalICH, and they're trying to get all the jurisdictions in line to take care of the people they got, kind of like how shelter in place was, running water, electricity, porta potty, laundry, showers, kitchen, community space, parking spaces. You know, I mean, what kind of shelter are they allowed to have? You know, because it just seems constantly we're punching people down. The city just repealed the rent stabilization, which everybody is probably very happy for. You know, I mean, it just feels like a bunch of sharks and predators eating people up. I'm going to raise the price, and if you ain't got it, well, then you're gone. And since you're gone, now we put you out to pasture. Now we're going to go hunt you down. And you know, I mean, it's a fun game, I guess, for the winners. You know, people who are live on paper that are just pencil whipping, you know, and punching numbers up. Hey, you know, rising costs. Well, you know, we all got to do it. We don't want to lose revenue. We got to stay in the positive. So, but what about people? You know, we're only going to have more homeless out here, and you're going to have more complaints about people being in front of your building and peeing and pooing everywhere when we shut down the MST bathrooms 10 to 1. So, you know, what are we doing for people? How can you support that, please? I understand this is only about business, but that's why we're talking about I'm talking about wealth inequality here, and we could do a lot better for the bang of a buck or whatever, and then we wouldn't have people to worry about either. And then who would you complain about?
Thanks, Wes. We'll move on to our action items just for the special meeting. That's all we have. 2 items.
We can switch the order.
Do we want to go with the CPI?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's part of the annual.
Okay, so let's go with,
That is on starting at page 75.
okay, so we're gonna look at adopting the CPI increase on the SCCIA assessments. Greg, one of you, Greg?
You do it?
Yeah.
So every year, at this point, we can adopt an increase on our assessments that it would take effect next fiscal year. So it's kind of weird that we have to do it now, even though we have a budget for next fiscal year, but that's just the way our bylaws and the management disagreement, how it's worded. We have to use the February CPI to get it to the county by July to be on the roll for next year. So it's kind of this, we have to approve it now, include it in the annual report for what it's gonna be next year. And so that's what we're doing today. The California February CPI was 3.065%. We're allowed to use that number, maximum 5%.
I'm sorry, California's what?
So the California February CPI, so the statewide average, 3.065. So I'm recommending we just round that out to 3 even, which is a total of about $14,845 increase across all properties, going from $494,842 up to $509,687. And so my recommendation to do this would be, we've always had cost increases. The history of SCCIA, we went maybe like four years with no increase, and then we started increases. So this would be our third increase since SCCIA was founded. And so just help keep up with expenses.
Before we make any motions or any other comments from the board, I think, or any public comment on this item?
Aren't you kind of going out of order? Shouldn't you like take it among the board and then you make a motion and then it goes out to public comment after you know what you're voting on?
The direction from my attorney was first public comment, then board questions, then action, or board questions, discussion, deliberation, and action by the board.
That sounds out of order. It sounds different than what I'm used to. Because what am I going to comment about? What you haven't talked about yet? Okay, I ain't got nothing to say. Go ahead.
I guess we can talk about it first. Any questions?
Yeah, so our report, do you have any questions? He gave a good background of it. I felt that was pretty clear. I'm not sure if anyone else has any comments on it, but please share.
I just had a question, so I can track the numbers. So the current assessment, I'm looking at page 77, is that the 509,000?
That would be the new.
That's the new, okay,
That
so
would
that
be what
includes
that-
the 3%
Correct,
increase, got
if we
it,
approve it.
got it, okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Any other comments from the board? Okay. Public comment?
No, thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second out there?
I'll second.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Now we'll move on to the approval of the 2024 SCCIA annual report. We all have that in front of us and was an email as well. Greg, do you want to highlight any items that were added or additional things to report on before we vote?
Yeah, so the handout that I left here was, so last year on the annual report, we had a very small section included on Monterey Street Garage. I didn't have time to include that, or I didn't get the data in time to include that on the draft you guys may or may not have reviewed. So this is a potential addendum or addition to the annual report should you guys want to include it. If not, it's just as easily kept out. The current copy you guys have is out. So if you want to include this, we can put it in there just to corroborate or to show that pretty much everything downtown is down. Sales tax is down, parking structure usage is down. Anecdotally, we're seeing less cars parked on the streets. The only thing that seems to be up is pedestrian traffic, but that could just be a counting error. The city engineer did tell me to take that with a grain of salt. So, but across the board, things seem to be slower. So, if you guys want to include this, great. If not, great. Doesn't matter. That's the board's decision.
Oh, one comment, the available parking on Main Street from about 11:30 to 1:30 is virtually non-existent. I mean, very rarely is there a vacant stall. Sometimes there are 2 or 3, but otherwise, because downtown at noon seems to be flourishing, at least from my judgment, just as a guy that comes downtown to eat.
And I'm seeing, during the rush hours, I'm seeing the same thing. And I went out to dinner a couple nights ago, Sushi Daruma, and there was not a single spot on the street. So,
Outstanding.
so there
What
are
time?
7
7? That's good
at
news.
night, Friday night.
Yeah.
Friday? Thursday, I don't know, one of those nights. But other than that, basically all of this data, it was all received from various locations. Jenna gave me all of the marketing updates. I'm tracking business licenses and also businesses that I just see that are not necessarily included in the business license request that I got from the city. And I'm tallied them all up, tried to split them apart as best as possible, you know, retail versus eateries versus services, nonprofits, etc. Here's a giant massive list of every business that I'm aware of, including all of their physical address, social media, websites, whatever stuff I have from them, sales tax revenue by year. We received that from the city. The last part that we received from the city is Q3 2024. So anything newer than that we do not own or do not have. I went pretty deep into weeds with the property taxes. And if you guys want to include this table or remove the table, it's easy to strike. So, and then I did a graphical representation of what the buildings look like that pay the most assessments. As you can see on that graph or that picture, no color or blue means very, very little sales tax. New buildings and new and properties that change hands a lot have a higher property tax. You know, same story. We all know how that works. Pedestrian traffic, a lot of events, pictures of events. Again, a massive graph or table of events that I track and have numbers for, easily to strike if it's too much information for you guys. Bunch of pictures, lots of pictures, and then we go into the meat and potatoes of the official report of the things that we're legally obligated to include. I don't really have any breakdowns of that unless you guys have questions for me specifically.
I think the Monterey Street parking garage is data that is background for our ongoing effort for parking management. So I think that ought to be included.
So, my question around the parking garage, I'm reading here 128,221 vehicles.
Yes,
That is for the year?
that is for a year.
Okay, so that's 2,466 per week.
Sure, yes.
And it holds 400.
435 or so.
435.
It is incredibly underutilized. I left out on that graph, I actually have a table that it goes
So
with it.
my question is, does the city of Salinas see these numbers?
I got them from the city.
Okay. Does the city manager know what they translate into?
I doubt it.
Does anybody know what they translate into?
I doubt it.
Okay.
So we could work on making that more aware.
So the reason this wasn't included earlier is because I had to manually punch in these numbers because the data I got was from a printout that was scanned. There was no way to easily import this data. So somebody would have to physically do what I did in order to get these numbers to show up in a graph and do calculations. And I doubt that anybody did that. Somebody really needs to go to LAS and say they gotta do a better job at like providing this data. I might do that myself.
Let's take, I would like to take this off, I would like to take this offline with Gregor.
Yeah.
Because I think there may be a possibility that numbers can be sent or justified with the city manager and somebody else, maybe it's the mayor, that maybe somebody out there would buy the parking garage
Somebody?
based off of numbers of 2,466 cars. In which case, probably that person is responsible for 70% of those cars.
This is the full, if you look at the revenue line, that is the full cost or the full revenue, including any parking permits that may have been purchased. And if you compare that against what I believe the contractual obligation is, the city has to maintain this parking structure with LAS, and I think that's about $800K. I think that's the contract that the city has. I have not been able to get a copy of that. I tried.
800 grand a year they're paying to maintain.
I believe so. I believe that's fairly accurate. It might be 7, but
They got somebody sweeping with a toothbrush?
Let's get this, so we know the numbers.
You got
are absolutely accurate.
So then that would be a recommendation to not put it in the report, but to use it for other analysis and advocacy?
Or include
to
this
put it
rough
in-
one for now?
I would suggest that it not be used and we do our homework and
Okay.
make sure our homework is absolutely correct.
Well, particularly if someone is theoretically, potentially gonna buy it. I agree with
That's
you.
a long shot, but,
Okay, I understand.
but
Yeah,
there's a lot of activity going on around the
I heard you.
Steinbeck Center.
Yes, I know.
So now would be the time to see if he's interested.
Okay, no, I agree
Well,
with
its
you.
value should be at a minimum right now.
Yeah.
especially because the
So
numbers are
I
down.
would say,
Well, you buy
if somebody
should be
was gonna
free.
buy it, this would be a
You buy
good time to buy it.
something when it's 3/4 empty is the best time to buy it. You got it right.
Absolutely.
You must be making a living in real estate, huh?
Might wanna consider that.
Any other comments on the report itself?
The only thing I think I would put in, it's always confusing in the financial report section, because we have the 3 sections, and I
Yeah.
always get calls from them as far as, explain this to me. Just in the, put the
Little
words
blurb.
historical, current, future.
Oh, yeah.
On the 3 sections as like a heading,
I can do that.
so.
That's easy.
Otherwise, they have to look at the dates and it becomes confusing if they don't. You have the last year's financials, so just use the word like historical above it.
Right.
You have the current operating budget, so you just put the word current there. And then there's next year's assessments we just approved, put future.
Hartnell is in escrow. Okay.
I just think that would help
But not on a parking structure.
limit the
No.
calls from the city,
From the city.
seeking explanation.
Yeah.
Got it.
Other than that, I thought you did a good job,
Thank you.
you know,
That's very good.
so, more information.
Any other little things
Or big things.
or big things? Okay, so should we go out to public for any comments?
Pass, thank you.
Catherine? No comment?
No comments, just want to commend everybody and thank you for the hard work that you do. It's, as a property owner, I'm very, very appreciative.
Do we want to put a motion out to approve, well, to keep the parking out and make a motion to approve with the amendments?
With edits.
With it, it's all moved
So, sans parking
Move.
structure.
to approve it without the parking,
Yeah.
but with the other amendments
Okay,
on the reports.
Do we have a motion?
that's a motion.
I so move.
Second.
Second.
Got it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Annual report is approved, yay.
Thank you.
Nice work, Greg.
Nicely done, Greg.
Okay. That's our meeting.
Thank you guys so much.
All right.
Appreciate it.